today. Now go and tell all the neighbors, yeah. Then crank up the radio. There's infotainment, brilliance to get you on your way. Wake up and start your day with Jimmy Lakey.
Well, top of the morning to you, everybody. Nice to have you here. Jaime Lagos. That's my name, Jimmy Lakey. Pleasured, pleased, thrilled, and overall just overjoyed to be here with you on this glorious day the Lord has made. It is Wednesday, the 10th day of September, year of our Lord, 2025. I had to guess on that one. Good to have you here on the program. Lots of great guests coming up on the show. The America's psychiatrist coming up. Dr. Carol Lieberman will be with us forthwith this morning. Also, Barbara Kirkmeyer making news in the state of Colorado last night. She is a Weld County Commissioner, former, and now a Colorado State Senator, a real go-getter and friend of the program for many years, and back even in the radio days. And Barbara Kirkmeyer has announced that she's running for governor in the state. She'll be with us in about 1 hour from right now, so we'll have a little overtime show coming up as well. So good to have all of you here on the program. Kenneth Abramowitz is going to be on the show as well, so we always like having him on talking about Israel and the Middle East policy. So Kenneth Abramowitz on the show as well. So don't go anywhere. Stay right where you're at and enjoy the next little bit sipping your coffee with me, Jaime Lagos. All right, some other stories we will cover throughout the morning. We'll continue to talk about Irina Zarutska, the Ukrainian immigrant that escaped the tyranny of Vladimir Putin, but she could not, for some reason, escape the tyranny of a crime-riddled Democrat-led city and soft-on-crime policies by the American Democrat Party. We'll talk about that. Sheriff Steve Reams, America's favorite sheriff, who's a friend of the program, is also making national news. As he talked about last week on the program, he had to release a very dangerous criminal from his jail based on a law signed by our butt-headed governor, Jared Polis. Jared Polis is, we got to keep him in jail. Well, Jared, you're the jackass that signed the law that caused Steve Reams to have to let a very dangerous criminal roam the streets of Colorado. And if Steve Reams is actually getting some publicity for dangerous criminals roaming the streets of Colorado, how many other dangerous criminals are walking the streets of Colorado because Jared Polis does not care about your safety and your sanctity of life? He doesn't give a rat's patootie. Jared Polis is in it for Jared Polis and his bat crap crazy libtard friends. So everybody, I think the chickens, as Barack Obama's pastor famously said one day, the chickens are coming home to roost, and it's being exposed all across America and all across Colorado, these retarded policies. And I do say retarded. You're not supposed to say that word. No, they're retarded. Retarded policies that have been signed by idiots like Jared Polis and J.B. Pritzker and governors across the state and city councils and district attorneys and prosecutors have just been soft on crime. And you have a jackass like this DeCarlos Brown roaming the streets, literally a psycho, a man who had been diagnosed with very severe psychological issues. His own mother said he was a threat to society. And yet in Charlotte, in North Carolina, they decided that this person should roam the streets freely, and it would be mean to keep him in there because he's not competent. And sign this paper and say you'll come back. And I wonder if he signed the paper and said, hey, I'll come back after I kill somebody. In the state of Colorado, the dangerous person that gets out of the Weld County, Colorado jail is someone that has been deemed as insane, incompetent to stand trial. And so rather than deal with that person, knowing they've committed a crime, but they're not competent of standing trial for that crime, Colorado, just under the signature of Jared Polis, lets that person out. Listen, Jared Polis, if you're watching and your little minions are watching, you will have blood on your hand. I don't want to stand next to you when you stand before the Almighty, because your policies have been murderous in so many ways, and lives have been lost because of you. And you deal with it. And we'll make sure we remind America when you decide that you're going to run your pompous ass for president. A lot of bad policies by these Democrats, and I think the chickens are coming home to roost as we see people like Irina Zarutska murdered in the light rail station or on the light rail cars of North Carolina. I think it's time that we just call for extreme measures. And by that, I mean, there's some Republicans saying, hey, in North Carolina, that they should shut the light rail system down in North Carolina unless there's going to be police officers now on every car. You hear in New York City that these criminals, these homeless criminals, a lot of times, homeless or not, are pushing people. You have to stand against the wall of the subway while you wait for your car to come because somebody for no reason will come and push you in the middle of the rail track and cause you to get run over by a subway car. Public transportation is a cesspool. Public transportation, which Democrats all want you on, is really kind of a population control for these Democrats. If they can't kill you with their vaccines, if they can't kill you with their policies of abortion, then doggone it, we're going to get you on public transportation and we're going to get you killed there by these criminals that they let roam the street. Anybody getting the feel? I don't think I'm being hyperbolic. Anybody getting the feel that Democrats and their policies, whether it's in the womb or whether it's at the subway station, Democrat policies don't seem to care for the sanctity of life. Am I right or am I wrong? I think I'm very much right. And again, whether you're in the abortion clinic or whether you're in the subway station, they're very happy if someone just kind of dies and it's no big deal. And you just have to deal with it because they made it a law. And everybody suck it up, Buttercup. Suck it up, Buttercup. The Democrats are in charge of things. So we'll talk more about this because I think the chickens come home to roost, meaning their policies are being exposed for the danger they are. I know last night, producer Chad probably has the exchange on Instagram, but producer Chad, if I can say, I haven't really seen it. This is an exchange that Elon Musk got involved and said this is crazy. And it's talking about our sheriff, Steve Reams. Colorado sheriff admits that he was forced to release a very dangerous inmate from jail because of a state law signed by Jared Polis that requires criminals found incompetent to stand trial to be released. He's dangerous. Elon Musk tweets that out and says, this is insane. Well, here's Jared Polis, who signed the law. Jared Polis may have mental issues of his own. Read Jared Polis's comment. This is what he put on X. Absolutely unacceptable. I'm calling on the county attorney and the DA to use state laws, CRS Title 25, Title 27, to ensure he's not at large. That should have happened before release, not after. Sheriff Steve Reams was on this program, and he cited the laws that forced him, Jared, to release this thug, this Democrat potential voter, onto the streets. Jared, you have blood on your hands. You and your policies have become a threat to the state of Colorado, and I hope that Colorado recognizes that this crime-riddled hellhole that we now have to call home because of you, Jared Polis, you have blood on your hands, and you have destroyed all the greatness of the state. The cost of living is up. The price of crime is high, and Jared Polis wears that like an albatross around his neck. We'll get Sheriff Steve Reams. I know Sheriff was in the audience yesterday. Sheriff, if you want to jump into the conversation anytime, feel free. I'll get you scheduled on for tomorrow, Thursday. But feel free to, you know the link to get in the green room anytime you need to hop in. Just hop in and I will get you in there. Jared Polis says it should have happened before he got released. And yet you're the one, Jared Polis, has signed the law that said this jackwagon has to be released. So we'll talk more about that. But again, these people are delusional. They're delirious. They're delusional. They're absolutely insane. And their policies are becoming exposed. And with this release from this prisoner from the Weld County Jail that Elon Musk is even talking about nationally, Jared Polis is running for cover and hoping that he can find somebody to hide behind, but his policies that have destroyed the safety of Colorado. Listen, I will remind you again, there's one comment by Jeff. They've gone from DEI hires to DEI releases. Yeah, if you meet the right criteria, diversity, equity, inclusion, you just get released on the streets. And Jared Polis is running for cover, hoping that he doesn't get caught up here in the crossfire when it comes to the blame game of why Colorado's not safe. But Jared, shut the hell up. You're a worthless governor. You have done nothing to make this state better. You have done so many things to destroy this state. And all of us can look at the crime statistics in the state of Colorado. We can look at the cost of living in the state of Colorado. We can look at the roads in Colorado, the potholes that we must endure, and we can look at all the mismanagement and malfeasance that has come about under your rule and reign. And all we can do in Colorado is warn you that when you hear that Jared Polis, our feckless governor, wants to run for president, all we can do is tell America to run fast, run hard, and don't get anywhere near this guy. He is a danger to your safety. He's a danger to your pocketbook. He is a danger to America if he wants to run for president. And you just look at his policies and you can see that that is absolutely true. And it's really interesting to see Jared acting like he cares about safety and human life when there's so many laws that he has passed that really are a danger to human life and have not brought about safety and safety in the state of Colorado. It is what it is. We recognize it, but that's the governor of the state of Colorado. We'll get Sheriff Reams on the program to talk about this maybe more tomorrow. I know we got a full house today, and he could jump in a little bit about 45, but I know it's a short schedule, so we'll get him in here. Again, coming up with the program moments away, Dr. Carol Lieberman should be joining us. Kenneth Abramowitz is going to join us, and also Barbara Kirkmeyer has announced that she's running for governor of the state of Colorado. If you're a Colorado viewer, we had in previous months, we have had former Congressman Greg Lopez on the program. He's announced that he's running for governor. Our old friend Mark Baisley has announced that he's running for governor. Mark was on the program, and now Kirkmeyer, Barbara, has announced there's like 20,000 people, Republicans running for governor. But Barbara's very interesting. She has a track record of success. If you might remember, she was the first Republican that ran for the seat that now Gabe Evans holds, which is Colorado Congress District 8. And when it was first announced after the last census that we had a new district in Colorado, it's the district that I happen to live in. Yadira Caraveo faced off against Barbara Kirkmeyer, and only by a few hundred votes did the lunatic Caraveo Democrat win that seat. And after one term, the people of CD8 said, yeah, enough of that nut. And so they put in Gabe Evans. Well, Barbara Kirkmeyer does have some name recognition, and I think she has a track record of the legislature. And Barbara Kirkmeyer is scheduled to be with us at 9 o'clock this morning in the Mountain Time Zone. That would be 11 o'clock in the Eastern Time Zone. So we'll talk more about that. All right, we got our first guest coming up, Dr. Carol Lieberman, America's psychiatrist, jumping on the program here momentarily. And we're going to talk about, obviously, the anniversary of 9/11 is tomorrow. We'll talk about that with Dr. Lieberman for purposes of her podcast, The Terrorist Therapist. She has been a voice in the wilderness at times, talking about terrorism and what happened on September the 11th. You may recall in previous years, she has made sure that signs and billboards rolled around town to remind us of what happened on that fateful day on September the 11th, 2001. But I want to bring this story up, but I'll use this as a tool, as a segue, a springboard to get her in here. I have the headline, Mamdani. I haven't talked much about Zohran Mamdani because, New York City has become what New York City is and gets a lot of other coverage. But if you don't recall, Zohran Mamdani is a failed rapper. He had a rapping career, and he has repeatedly used every July 4th, the birthday of America, the Independence Day of America, as an opportunity to celebrate with a rap group which favorably compared itself to the Taliban and Al-Qaeda. His own lyrics in his rap career praised Hamas and the money laundering that happened. Let me read a little bit of the story. And I asked Dr. Carol Lieberman to start. How do we go from a New York City from 9/11 horrified by what happened there in 2001 to almost electing a mayor that marks the anniversary of the 4th of July, sharing a photo of a rap group that is infamous for its glorification of the Taliban and Al-Qaeda and its praise for one of the 9/11 hijackers. Mamdani, I'll just give you this story. Mamdani, who possibly going to become the mayor of New York, once has wished in the previous his social media followers a happy 4th on Independence Day in 21, 23, and 24. Less than 1 year before the failed rapper became the Democrats' party nominee, in tweets accompanied by a picture from a music video the two lead singers of the controversial rap group called the Diplomats, also known as Dipset, and they had pro-terrorism tinged lyrics. So Mamdani has for years praised terrorism and celebrated with music in his failed rap career from another rap group that basically praised Hamas and praised a lot of the stuff. They called their collective hip hop was called Harlem's Own Taliban, Harlem's Al Qaeda. The group says their songs are 9/11 music. One of the group's main singers compared himself to an Al Qaeda founder, Osama bin Laden, and declared the song "I Worship the Prophet" Mohammed Atta as the ringleader. So these are the people that have influenced and or been shared by Mamdani, who wants to be the mayor of New York City. And I bring this up on the anniversary or the eve of the anniversary of the commemoration of September the 11th, 2001. Ladies and gentlemen, America's psychiatrist is in the green room. We bring her to the main stage here. Dr. Carol Lieberman is in the house. Dr. Lieberman, welcome into the program. Good morning. Your mic is muted there, Doctor. Let's see if we can get that unmuted. Dr. Lieberman is fiddling with her instruments there. She's working on it there. I see her mouth is moving, but I don't hear your voice. It's open on my end, so it's on your end, Doctor. We'll let Dr. Carol Lieberman see if she can get her sound going here on her audio. She's working on it very diligently. I'll put her down on the stage, Doctor. You can work on that for just a second and double check that. Let me put this story out. I think it's a fascinating story about Mamdani and his love for these rappers that celebrated the Taliban and celebrated some very bad things that happened September 11th, 2001. All right, good to have all of you here on the program. Dr. Lieberman is working on her audio. I think we have her now. Dr. Lieberman?
Can you hear me now?
I got you. Yes.
Okay, good. Sorry about that. I don't know.
It's all right.
Yes, Mamdani. You know, if people had told New Yorkers closer to 9/11 that in some years from now, there's going to be a guy who's basically a terrorist who is going to run for mayor and you're going to vote him in for mayor, they would have said, you're crazy. But here we are 24 years later, and he is leading the pack. Now, of course, part of the reason is because the other voters, the other candidates have divided the voters, but still the idea that he could get this much support when he is basically a terrorist. I mean, he's promising all these, socialist, communist. I mean, he calls himself a Democrat socialist or socialist Democrat, whatever. And he's promising everything free, free buses, free after school activities, all kinds of free stuff. And he's a one-man meme, I call him, representing the Red-Green Alliance, the Reds being the socialist communist people, the progressives, and the Green being the terrorists. And these two groups, even though they make strange bedfellows, but these two groups have come together for the purpose of destroying America. There are lots of things that they don't agree with each other about, like obviously terrorists don't believe with LGBTQ plus and all of that. But they have banded together for the purpose of destroying America. And if he gets to be elected mayor of New York, that very well will help destroy the whole country, because this would just be a disaster.
Yeah. The voice of Dr. Carol Lieberman. Dr. Lieberman, how did we get here? You're right, 20-something years ago, if we would have told New Yorkers, you're going to have this guy's your potential mayor, people said that will never happen here. How did it happen here? Was it a failing of the public schools? Was it a failing of the traditional Democrat Party? Was it a failing of the Republican Party? How is it that we have become so brainwashed and ignorant that people in New York, who probably are pretty smart folks with education and certificates on the wall, have fallen to the propaganda and the message of Mamdani? How did we get here?
Yes, good question. And, I'm a New Yorker born and bred. That's why I, followed the whole after 9/11, became the terrorist therapist, and have devoted a significant amount of my time helping people all over in America, in London, in Paris, in Israel now too, by Zoom. And, it's because my heart was still in New York when 9/11 happened. Anyway, how did we go from there to here? It's a number of things. Denial. We don't want to remember that. When you have something in childhood that was very traumatic and painful, you don't want to talk about it. You don't want to remember it. So part of it is denial. Part of it is complacency, because we haven't had some attacks in a while, but that was because, during COVID, when we were all inside and we weren't going to concerts or working in the streets and things like that. So there was less for the terrorists to attack. They didn't have any large crowds. And the fact that we've been at school, as you mentioned, yes, schools. There are so many schools, even in New York, that don't even acknowledge the anniversary of 9/11. Now, you mentioned that about what I've been doing, and I'm doing it this year too. I had created a music video about 9/11, and also about the last year. I changed it, and it's I'm still having it running on a mobile billboard, but it's not just about warm and fuzzy why we need to remember 9/11. It's about, hello, folks, the terrorists are in your streets. They're here. There are cells all over America. We are in much more danger now than we were when 9/11 happened. And people have to wake up to this. They don't want to, we don't want to remember. And of course, another part of the problem is that every year, the number of people who were born after 9/11 increases, the percentage of the population. So they don't feel it. It's like if you weren't around for Pearl Harbor, you learn it in history. I visited Pearl Harbor, but I don't really feel anything much about it. And if you weren't around on 9/11, it's hard to have that feeling. And so there is a growing percentage of our population who doesn't have that feeling and can't imagine how bad it was.
Yeah. The voice, if you're listening to the podcast version of the show on Apple Podcast or iHeartRadio or Spotify, where thousands of ear holes will listen to the show by the end of the day, end of the week. Some watch it live, some listen later. That's Dr. Carol Lieberman. We'll give you websites and podcast information here in just a moment. Dr. Lieberman, I want to kind of go up higher up than just New York and look at the policies that have put these criminals on the streets in New York and other cities, these terrorist cells that are lingering. Some of them cross the border illegally. Tom Homan's desperately trying to get him out of the country. We have no cash bail that's put people on the street that murders a Ukrainian immigrant in North Carolina, Irina Zarutska. This is a guy that had been arrested many times. He's roaming the streets. And then you have this shooter recently in Minnesota, who's another long list of people that are committing crimes in the identifying as transgender. I raised the question, are we having policies of becoming so pro-transgender that we haven't looked at the potential danger of changing the hormonal balance of someone, and maybe that could cause problems down the road and cause psychotic behavior? I'm not sure. I'm not a doctor, but it's a question we should ask. But for some reason, we just have all these policies, open border, no cash bail, transgender policy, and we're not, for some reason, at least part of the country is not willing to stop and go, is that the best for us? Is it putting us in danger?
Yes, and I'm glad you mentioned, of course, the border is really one of the biggest reasons why we're more in danger, because of all the terrorists coming over the border. But yes, we've kind of gone into this anything goes kind of policy. Let anybody do whatever they want. And clearly, even people attacking the police. Years ago, you would have, what? Someone is daring to spit in the face of a policeman? These things that the borders, besides the borders, our southern and northern border, those borders, there are borders in society that are being crossed. Things that were not thought to be okay at all are now being allowed to happen. And yes, a society that gives up its rules and its, culture and all of that. We see what's happening in Europe. Europe is, of course, the mainstream media doesn't cover what's happening in Europe enough or at all. And there are terrorists, who have overtaken, it was in France and in Germany and in Belgium. And now, of course, in the UK, it is just absurd. The UK is, and Ireland too, although Ireland is fighting back. But But, I mean, it's just, this is what happens when they reach a tipping point. When when talking about radical Islamist migrants, when they reach a tipping point, they're able to take over society.
Yeah. How do we wake up? You're the caretaker of America's mental health, and we as a group seem to have some mental health issues by allowing this insanity to happen around us. Unfortunately, does it take? I mean, you have a shooter in Minneapolis that does tragic things to kids that are actually praying in church, and I don't think we've waken up that maybe we should look at some of the hormone therapies. I don't know, but maybe we should ask some questions. All these things happen, and nobody seems to want to ask the right questions. People try to get to their corner and defend their stance on no cash bail when Irina Zarutska's knifed down in a public transportation system in North Carolina. We don't seem to be waking up. We seem to be going to our corners and protecting our politicians.
Yes, and the mayor who said, well, like, you should feel sorry for this guy. I mean, well, part of the problem also is that from a while ago now that they emptied out the chronic state hospitals, mental hospitals, and these people are in the streets. They're the homeless. They're the people who end up in jail if they end up in jail eventually. And that's part of the craziness that we have around us too. But as far as the hormones, I don't know. I haven't been able to find out whether the Minneapolis shooter, how far he had gone down the conveyor belt in terms of changing his sex. But obviously, it's more like the girl in Tennessee. It's more about girls getting male hormones, roid rage and all that. It's more about the male hormones that make people violent. But yes, we have to start going back to having rules, and of course, getting all the immigrants who crossed over illegally, is an important start. And Mandami, that's another thing. He doesn't want police. He wants to defund the police. He wants to send out social workers on calls instead of police. Now, that's until the first social worker gets killed. I mean, you can't, some things, it's nice to have a social worker with a policeman, but you can't just send out social workers to some of these reasons why people call the police. Unless you're going to teach them how to shoot a gun, and even that, it gets to be even crazier the more you go down that hole. But people need to first of all to wake up and, well, why I do this truck, this music video is to wake people up, is to make people realize he who forgets history is doomed to repeat it. So this truck I have on my website, and I know you'll give out the website in a bit, but on my website I have videos from this year and last year and the prior years, and I have pictures of the truck. And so you can see this. I mean, it's a very huge truck going around the streets of Manhattan, particularly Ground Zero, with this loud music playing. It gets a lot of attention. It's interesting because I have pictures of this, and people, it kind of like wakes them up. Like on the video, there's a big picture of Osama bin Laden, for example, and it's kind of like, oh yeah, that's right, that happened. Yeah. So that's the first part. And then, of course, not to elect people who sing in rap groups about how terrorism is great. And I don't think he's doing much singing anymore because he wasn't so successful. But obviously he would be taking that philosophy to the office of mayor.
Tomorrow is the commemoration of the 9/11. As you said, a large number of our population grows every year that wasn't even born. They don't have the feelings that you and I maybe feel of the impact of that day. Talk about the commemoration. You mentioned the truck, and people want to see it. You can give the website out. But just a reminder of what it is that those of us that were impacted quite harshly. And we are bothered by the seemingly flippant mentality that this is, we don't remember that. Why is it so important that we do remember it?
Sure. Good question. Well, first of all, we have to acknowledge, when 9/11 happens, even though, a lot has been done in the last 4 years, especially, or when Obama and Biden, more than 4 years, the Obama-Biden White House is um, to make us forget. It's not just a coincidence, and it's not just because we're in denial. There was a definite effort to make us forget. But why we have to remember? Because we have to realize that they are still out there more than ever, trying to take over the West, trying to make us live under Sharia law, trying to kill us because we are the infidels. We are the non-believers. Anybody who doesn't believe in radical Islam has to be either killed or converted, made to pay a jizya, a tax, and certainly to live under Sharia law. And I don't think anyone really would like that, but people don't know enough about it to realize that this is a major problem. I suggest that people look online to, like on Twitter and other social media, but particularly on Twitter, where there are videos of what's happening in all these European countries. In Germany, they're raping people every day. There are attacks, not the 9/11 type attacks, but on the streets. There are women and children being raped. There are, they want to, in Germany, they have demanded that a caliphate be set up in Germany. We're not talking about the Middle East, when they asked for a caliphate. We're talking about Germany. And of course, they want that in France and England and, all the other European countries as well. And once they get enough people who believe in that, it's going to be harder to say, no, we can't do this in Europe. They're just destroying the culture. They would destroy American culture as well, because it's not about fitting in. It's not about acclimating. It's not about learning the language. It's about taking over the West. Yeah. And so, for anybody who thinks that I'm like a conspiracy theorist or something, just please look online. Well, actually, also look on my website. Look at the video, which is, my website is terroristtherapist.com. And you will see all these videos and you can see for yourself.
terroristtherapist.com. You also have podcast with a set topic, terroristtherapist.com, terroristtherapist.com. And you can see the truck that will be circulating again in Manhattan tomorrow, hopefully to just wake some people up and say, hey, America, we cannot forget these policies that we have now are going to bring back dangers that we had years ago if we're not careful. It's not just policies on the border. It's no cash bail, all sorts of stuff. We have to wake up and pay attention to the policies that these politicians are promoting out there. Terroristtherapist.com, terroristtherapist.com. Dr. Lieberman, it's always a pleasure to have you on the show, and I appreciate your time.
My pleasure as well.
Thank you. Dr. Carol Lieberman, terroristtherapist.com, terroristtherapist.com. All right, I want to bring up my next guest. We'll talk more about terrorism and Iran and just some of the things that happened with some of those terrorist states that have infiltrated America, and also talk about Israel. That's coming up. Dr. Kenneth Abramowitz coming up here in just a moment. But we'll remind you, my friends, that if you are new to the show, we want to thank Sherry Cree for her sponsorship. She's a fantastic realtor in Colorado, and whether you're in Denver, whether you're in Boulder, whether you're in Aurora, Broomfield, Fort Collins, Greeley, wherever you're at on that I-25 metro corridor, if you've got a home that you're thinking of buying, thinking of selling, you got to talk to Sherry. There's some strategy. There's some timing that matters. We're in kind of a fall window right now. A lot of things change. People don't do as much, but they're still active during the Christmas and Thanksgiving holidays. But there's a lot of people trying to squeeze a lot of business in before the holiday season hits. Maybe you're one of those people. A lot of folks are trying to anticipate what to do with real estate, buying and selling, with the talk about the rates coming down very soon. Can you jump in before the rates are actually officially down? Listen, there's a lot of answers to questions that you may have, but you got to talk to someone who knows it inside and out. And that is Realtor Sherry Cree. Go to her website, homeswithsherry.com, homeswithsherry.com, and have a strategy session with her. Maybe you're like, I'm not ready to do this till next year. We're too close to the holidays or too close to fall. That's fine. Put the strategy in place so that when, let's say, February comes along and, I was going to wait till May. No, you want to get going in February and March. Again, there's timing, there's windows of opportunity, which you can make better deals and get better transactions, better rates, etc. As far as for your house. So listen, you got to have your strategy in place. You need to have it on the timeline, and Sherry will help you do that. Homeswithsherry.com, homeswithsherry.com. Even if you're not ready today, have that strategy session with her, homeswithsherry.com. And again, if you're in Colorado and if you're outside of Colorado, maybe you're not the Denver metro area, but you say, I'd like to have a realtor like her, call her. She's got a free referral service and she'll hook you up with someone of just as qualified and attentive as she is. Homeswithsherry.com. Our friend Sherry Cree, homeswithsherry.com. Don't forget a portion of all the transactions she does with you. She'll take a portion of her proceeds and donate some of that to the charity of your choice. Homeswithsherry.com. Sherry Cree, C-R-E-E, homeswithsherry.com. All right, let me bring in author and commentator extraordinaire, threat analyst, Kenneth Abramowitz. He's written a book called The Multi-Front War, Defending America from Political Islam, China, Russia, Pandemics, and Racial Strife. Kenneth Abramowitz jumps on the stage here with me. Mr. Abramowitz, welcome back to the program, sir.
Great to be with you as always.
Well, let's dive right in here, my friend. A couple of topics I want to get to. I keep thinking, I kept hoping, I thought that maybe we're going to wind down this war between Israel and Hamas, and it has not happened yet. Give me your perspective. Where are we at? Are they making progress? There's still hostages being held there by these terrorists, and it's really sad to see some of the images pop out of these prisoners that are still alive and yet look like they're almost starving to death. Give me your thoughts. Where are we at in this war? Is Israel about to wrap this up finally?
Well, let me just spend 1 minute on history. I know this is not a history lesson course, but when did the war begin? Because if you're going to ask the question, when is the war going to end, you should understand when the war began. Okay, so I'm going to give you a few answers. The war began October 7th of 2023 when Hamas illegally invaded Israel and committed genocide against 1,200 Israelis and took 250 or so hostages. Okay, so that's a war, obviously. Now, the war, you could also say, began in 1948 when the new Israel was established. And all the neighboring Arab countries declared war on Israel and invaded Israel. If you want to go further back, just to end this history lesson, 1,400 years ago, when Muhammad and his followers decided to take over the world and kill all the Christians, Jews, and Hindus, and took over half of the Christian world, which the Christians don't even remember. But the Middle East was Christian, and now it's Muslim. And so there's 3 wars going on simultaneously: a 1,400-year war, since 48 war, and since 2023 war. So the question is, when is the war going to end? The war is going to end when Islamism, also known as jihadism or political Islam, is destroyed, and not Muslims destroyed, but Islamists. Those are governments that are, or terror organizations that are using Islam as an excuse to impose it on other people and take over the world. And that shows no sign of concluding. So Israel and America basically have to fight nonstop until they make the decision to destroy Islamism. Neither country has made that decision yet.
Hamas is an organization that has been famously funded by Iran. Iran, of course, has been slapped down by Israel and the United States in the last couple of months. Our B-2 bombers go in there and destroy their nuclear weapons site. And whatever we did there didn't seem to have any effect on Hamas. Are they still getting funding from Iran? Has that been, has the head of the snake been cut off a little bit?
Well, in the Middle East, there's 2 elephants in the room, as I say, or 2 Islamist countries that are financing all of this lunacy. So you have Qatar, which represents the, by the way, Muslims are 85% Sunni, 15% Shiite, because they dispute who should have taken over after Muhammad 1,400 years ago, and they're still fighting. But anyways, so we have Qatar representing the Sunnis and Iran representing the Shiites. And these are the 2 elephants in the room. And so they're financing all the bad guys. So they're financing Hamas, Hezbollah, and Yemen, the Houthis. And so they're the source of the financing. And America hasn't yet come to the conclusion that we need regime change in both Iran and Qatar.
No.
The governments are not, the governments cannot coincide with civilization. And that's the basic point.
Yeah. We're in a PR battle in America because the media here, mainstream media, supposedly wants to talk more about, they call it a genocide that's happening. They talk about people starving in the Gaza Strip. They talk about all they paint Israel as if they're the perpetrators of bad things for getting back to October the 7th. But we've got to win this PR war because it's what Hamas has done to Israel. They'd love to do to us again. They did it on September 11th, 2001. Years ago, the terrorists did that as well. Where are we at in this PR war, and how do we win it? Because it is a must that we win it.
Very good. You are 100% correct. In my book, The Multi-Front War, now in its fourth edition, I just published the fourth edition 3 months ago, I highlighted 7 forms of warfare. Kinetic, that means things blow up. Chemical and biological. Number 3, cultural, which I'll get to in 30 seconds. There's also economic, in other words, boycotts, legal or lawfare. There's demographics, and there's cyber. So there's 7 forms of warfare. We know how to fight all 7 of them except number 3, except cultural warfare. There is no one in the American government whose function in life is cultural warfare. And or in Israel. And by the way, those are the only 2 countries that basically function properly anymore in this world. And so America needs a cabinet level secretary that I would call Secretary of Cultural Preservation. You could also call him Secretary of Truth, but we don't call people secretaries of truth. Yeah. So let's say Secretary of Cultural Preservation. And we live in a Judeo-Christian country. We're 90% Christian, 2% Jewish, but together we're a Judeo-Christian country. And we're the most successful civilization in the history of civilizations in the history of the world. So we have a lot to be proud about. Someone's got to be responsible for protecting it. And now, the President of the United States, President Trump, and the Prime Minister of Israel are in effect the Secretary of Cultural Preservation. Or in Israel, they call them ministers. So Minister of Cultural Preservation. But the point in my book was to be a president or prime minister is a full-time job. You have a million things to do. You have to designate one person, not you, not you, the president, one person to manage a cultural war. And we haven't done that. And that's why America and Israel are both deficient in fighting cultural warfare. The bad guys have a minister of propaganda. We need a minister of anti-propaganda.
Yeah. The voice of Kenneth Abramowitz, if you're listening later on the program, I know some of you watch the show live or watch it in repeat. You'll see it on the screen. But a lot of you, thousands of ear holes on all the forums that we're on, will hear this show, see this show over the next couple of days, even today. That's Kenneth Abramowitz. I'll give you the name of the book and ask him 1 or 2 more questions. The Multi-Front War, Defending America from Political Islam, China, Russia, Pandemics, and Racial Strife. Kenneth Abramowitz is the author, and he's a threat analyst, and we're glad to have him on the show. You're so right that we have to educate ourselves against the propaganda we're being fed all the time and recognize that we are under threat. And a lot of times the political left will say this is a threat to democracy, talk about Trump or what have you. But we really do have a threat to democracy. It was exhibited in 2001 on September the 11th by a terrorist attack. October 7th, 2023, a threat to the Judeo-Christian values that are there in Israel. I mean, all these threats, they've been lingering out there for a couple of decades now. And yet we have a political party and media that wants to use the phrase threat to democracy to define another political party. How important is it that we get our history correct and recognize what the real threat to democracy is? We've got a couple of decades and we don't seem to be learning our lesson.
No, you're exactly right. This cultural war pervades the country. We're not fighting it well, but if we were fighting it well, it's not just in media and social media. It's in our schools, K through 12. It's in our teachers' colleges. It's in our universities. It's in our workplace. It pervades the society. That's why I say it's a full-time job. And so I'll give you an example. Who's reading the textbooks of the K through 12 kids? And are they full of false narratives? And the answer is yes. And who put those false narratives in? Our foreign enemies. Hello. Okay. And I call our foreign enemies, I color code them the reds, the greens, and the blues. The reds, traditional color for communists. Green, the traditional color for Islam, but I'm not talking about Islam, I'm talking about Islamists. And blue is the traditional color for the United Nations, and that's the globalists. So the false narratives are pervading our books, which then gets into our kids' brains, which then carries over to the university, which then carries over to the teachers' college, which then creates a whole new generation of teachers to miseducate our kids. So you can see it's a big issue, and that's why we need someone in a staff of people to focus on cultural warfare.
Very quickly, you mentioned the United Nations. I'll bring this story up. There is a UN watchdog group, or the confidential report by the United Nations nuclear watchdog that has circulated, and basically the Associated Press is reporting that Iran had increased its stockpile of uranium enriched to nuclear grade levels before Israel launched its attack on Iran back in June. Oh, what is this watchdog report that was supposed to be confidential? What does it tell us about Iran that maybe we weren't aware of, or maybe the public didn't know about?
Yes. Well, the nuclear issue is actually the tip of the iceberg. Behind the iceberg, there's a lot of other things that I'll discuss in 30 seconds. But first, President Trump has determined, rightly, that Iran cannot have nuclear weapons and cannot enrich uranium. Okay. So that's clear. It hadn't been clear, but it's clear now. However, people don't know. Iran has 600,000 worldwide terrorists. Hello. So even if there's no nuclear program, who's going to contend with 600,000 worldwide terrorists? 300,000 are physical terrorists, which basically Israel's destroying in front of our eyes with help from America, but no one else. They have 100,000 narco-terrorists, which finally President Trump is addressing in Venezuela. Very good. And they have about 200,000 cultural terrorists. They have mosques, schools, books, and they're teaching what I would call Islamo-Nazi death cult cultural misinformation. Who's going to shut down those mosques, those schools, those imams? So Iran's much bigger problem than a nuclear is its 600,000 worldwide terrorists.
How important is it that we figure this out real quick? I mean, you speak these terrorists. Some of them, I believe, crossed our southern border. We have people on the terrorist watch list that have come into our country illegally over the last 4 years plus. You look at Europe, and they have a lot of problems there with some of these Islamicists that have crossed into their country and changing their culture. How important is it that we wake up as we get ready to commemorate September the 11th anniversary tomorrow? More fresh on our minds is October 7th, 2023. If we don't wake up, we're going to keep getting more of the same, and it could get worse than what it was October the 7th. How important is it that we win this battle?
Well, it's very important. Otherwise, we'll all become slaves. By the way, the Reds, the Greens, and the Blues, the communists, Islamists, and globalists are all dictatorships. I don't think Americans want to live under a dictatorship. And so, yes, we have to protect our freedom. Now, around President Reagan had a very famous line 50 or something years ago. I'll try to recollect it. The loss of freedom is never more than one generation away. So his point, correct, was that every generation has to fight for freedom. And think of it like a relay race. And we hand the baton to our children and then grandchildren, great-grandchildren, down through the generations. And every generation has to fight for freedom. And because the dictatorships are determined to snuff out freedom. And basically they're criminal organizations. They want to take over America. And the answer is no, or hell no, as we say in America. We're not going to tolerate that.
Yeah. Kenneth Abramowitz is my guest. Mr. Abramowitz, always appreciate your time and your expertise. The name of your book is called The Multi-Front War, Defending America from Political Islam, China, Russia, Pandemics, and Racial Strife. Sir, you've mentioned the book. Give us the plug one more time. Where can they get the book and how can they follow you, sir?
Well, two ways they can get the book. Obviously through Amazon and competitors to Amazon. That's one way. The second way is go to my website, savethewest.com. There's a link that takes you to Amazon. And by the way, everyone should sign up for SaveTheWest.com. It's complimentary. I write an article every 2 weeks, and you'll get it right to your email, SaveTheWest.com.
SaveTheWest.com. Mr. Abramowitz, I appreciate you coming on the program. It's been too long. When I got you scheduled, or my producer, esteemed producer Chad said, gosh, it's been a while since we had Mr. Abramowitz on. I said, yeah, that's our bad. We got to get him on more often. Kenneth Abramowitz, thank you for your time, sir. I appreciate you.
Sure. Pleasure to be with you as always.
It's free. Go sign up. SaveTheWest.com. SaveTheWest.com. He writes columns there, and you get those to your mailbox at free, and you'll be much smarter if you do that. SaveTheWest.com. All right. Good to have all of you here on the program. Don't forget, if you're a Colorado-based character out there watching this show, we have a new candidate running for governor, Barbara Kirkmeyer, a longtime friend of my radio show and this show, a friend of mine. She's going to be on the program here in about 6 minutes. She's scheduled to join us. She announced her candidacy yesterday. She was a former Weld County commissioner and also is currently a state senator. Very much a smart person and a leader down at the state capitol, doing her best to fight off the idiocy of Jared Polis and the merry band of liberal Democrats that run this state. Barbara Kirkmeyer is scheduled to join us here in just a moment. And again, she'll be the third in our series of candidates that have declared they're running for governor. By the way, a point of order and note, if you're running for governor in the state of Colorado, I would be happy to have you on the program. Just send me an email, info@jimmylakey.com. I don't know all the candidates. There's like 45,000 running right now. I think there's Republicans. I looked at the list. It was a couple of columns. I think seriously, I think there's 12 or 15 already in. We've had Greg Lopez on the show. We've had Mark Baisley on the show, both candidates for governor, and Barbara Kirkmeyer is coming up here in just a moment. I think Barbara Kirkmeyer is a very interesting candidate that I would encourage all of you to look at as you're trying to figure out who would be the best person to try to run as a Republican and save this state from the stupidity that Jared Polis has thrust up on us. So stand by. Barbara Kirkmeyer scheduled to join us here momentarily on the show. All right, a couple of the news stories I want to get to in the meantime. Cracker Barrel has continued its backdown. Anybody remember the Cracker Barrel controversy? The logo change and all that change? Well, Cracker Barrel has even gone a little bit further. I have the story here. Unless you've been living under a rock, you know that Cracker Barrel attempt to modernize your logo in dining rooms did not go well. People did not like it. And so Cracker Barrel has finally decided not just are they going to go back to the old logo, which they've already announced, they're going to put a halt to all the remodel. They had previously announced reverting back to their old logo, and now they're reassuring customers that they have scrapped the remodeling plans. Now, I told you I was going to do some investigation a week or so ago and go to the Cracker Barrel out in Missouri where my son's in college and check it out, and I did not have that chance to do that. I got busy. He had an operation on his knee, and I was his DoorDash and bringing food back to him as he was at a hotel with me, resting up after a surgery. But he didn't want Cracker Barrel, so he didn't go, and I didn't get to go pick it up. So I've still got to do some Cracker Barrel homework. But Cracker Barrel has released this statement now. You've shared your voices, not just our logo, but also on our restaurants. If your restaurant hasn't been remodeled, you don't need to worry. It won't be. According to reports, they had actually only remodeled 4 of their 660 different locations. They also added in their statement, the vintage Americana will always be here. The rocking chairs on our porch, our fireplaces and peg games, unique treasures in our gift shop, and antiques pulled straight from our warehouse in Tennessee. The initial plan was to freshen up the design, clean up the dining rooms, which hadn't really been touched in decades. The chain has been struggling since the old pandemic. I hate that phrase, pandemic. Since the Booger Cootie virus thing happened, they thought maybe a cleaner, brighter, fresh, boosted up look might be work, especially attract some younger customers. But old schoolers felt like they were messing with tradition. If all Cracker Barrel had done was brightened up the restaurants, I don't think anybody would have cared. It was the whole kit and caboodle, and then they made a big deal out of it. And their website had all this DEI and propaganda about LGBTQ stuff. That's what triggered it. Cracker Barrel still doesn't get it that people are okay with a fresh coat of paint. And, if you want to get rid of the old toy tractor off the wall and put up a picture of something, I don't think most people would have cared about that with Cracker Barrel. Some people would have liked the old rustic look, and some people wouldn't. But it was all the package. And what they haven't admitted publicly that I've seen is that it wasn't just the logo. That was a dumb move, by the way. It's a logo that looked like the other logo, except they took off the white guy. That was dumb. We're kind of tired of people scratching logos. But the freshen up of the restaurant was not, I don't think, going to be that big a deal, except it was seen through the lens that Cracker Barrel has gone woke, and Cracker Barrel brought that own perception up. But in the comments, most people seem unfazed by the reversal. Old schoolers are still ticked off at Cracker Barrel because they did the change, and they're going to have to go back and reintroduce themselves. There's a lot of people probably going to try Cracker Barrel for the first time, or the first time in a long time, because of all this PR. So I think it's probably going to ultimately be a very good thing for Cracker Barrel. But you have to ask yourself, as far down this path as they went, and as slow as it took them to kind of make this reversal, is the CEO and the leadership team there, should they be kicked aside? That they were so out of touch with their audience, and they were so out of touch with not just their audience, but how to make changes. There's a way to make change, and there's a way to change things and move things forward in a direction, maybe a cleaner look or a new paint on the wall. But when you cause outrage because you change the color of paint on your wall, then you have not thought things through, and you have to ask yourself if this CEO is eventually going to finally get fired because of just this was a, you could look at it a marketing genius, and yet it was really a marketing nightmare for Cracker Barrel. But Cracker Barrel has said, don't worry, we're going to keep the logo, but also we're going to keep the decorations the same. And I have to ask you the question again. The logo, the changing of the restaurant, I don't see the bottom line of the books of the Cracker Barrel. I hope they will do what they need to do to stay successful. And if for some reason they thought a white coat of paint on the walls or a beige color, whatever, if they thought that was going to help them be successful, attract new crowds, I don't have a problem with that. But their problem became they wrapped themselves up in the cloak of wokeness and thought that they would attract a new crowd by declaring themselves LGBTQ this or that, and whatever they were doing, and it didn't work. And they got caught up in their own propaganda, and they shouldn't have done that. You can target a new audience without offending your old audience, but you just have to be smarter than these jackwagons were. And Bud Light could go after a new audience as well. I don't blame Bud Light back in the day for wanting to go after a new audience, but you don't go after a new audience by undermining the values of your existing audience, so they go about it all wrong. So anyway, there's your most recent Cracker Barrel backdown. They have decided that they're going to not do any more of the remodeling there at the Cracker Barrel and just let sleeping dogs lie. And I hope those are good business decisions. See, what they did, they got themselves caught up in a cultural battle because they're run by idiots. And because of that, I hope they're going to still be able to do some things subtly to attract a new audience and long live the Cracker Barrel. I don't want the Cracker Barrel to go away. And unfortunately, the way they handle this whole debacle, it has not been good, and I think it reflects the leadership. All right, there's another story out there. I've been watching the football. I'm happy the football's back on. Sunday night's game, the Buffalo Bills, Josh Allen came from behind. I was cheering for him. Monday night, you had J.J. McCarthy, his first NFL start with the Minnesota Vikings, and I thought he did a fantastic job. I was very happy to see that. Well, there's a story out. I'll give you the answer here before we end the show. They've done a research, and the NFL fan base that drinks the most, a survey of more than 3,000 football fans about their drinking habits, will tell you who drinks the most as an NFL fan and which fan base drinks the least. If you would like to take your guess at it right now, do so in the chat room. It'll pop on the screen. And before we play the meme roulette today, I will give you the answer. 3,000 football fans about their drinking habits and which teams have the most drunk fan base and which teams have the least drunk fan base. We will get to that here in just a moment in due course. All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you know me in this program, you hear us talk a lot. Even though a lot of you listen nationally, thousands of earballs will hear this show by the end of the day, and on the podcast platforms or the live streams we're on, Facebook, Twitter, X. I mean, all the platforms we're on dozens and dozens of places. I think lots of folks going to hear the show. Some are going to listen on Spotify when it becomes a podcast in just about 30 minutes from now. So you hear us talk a lot about Colorado, and we warn the rest of the nation that Colorado has become a cesspool of crime in a lot of ways, and also it's become a very expensive place to live. We need change in the state of Colorado. Jared Polis, our esteemed and yet very feckless, and I use esteemed with air quotes because I've got very little respect for him, but he's term limited, and so there's going to be a vacancy in the governor's mansion, and we need to get a Republican in there desperately to try to stem the tide of destruction that Jared Polis has wreaked upon the state. And Barb Kirkmeyer is a former Weld County Commissioner, and she is also now a current state senator, and she declared yesterday just down the street from myself in Fort Lupton, Colorado, she has declared that she is a candidate. She has declared that she is a candidate for governor, and I thought I saw her in the green room. She might have popped out. Let's see, Barb Kirkmeyer onto the stage. She goes. Barb, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
I hear you. You were on the camera, then you were off, so that's fine. You don't have to be on the camera. Welcome to the program.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Glad to have you here, Barb. You announced yesterday something very big just down the road from me. You announced that you are running for governor. For those who are not aware of you, to talk about you, your background, then we'll jump into why you're running.
Sure. Okay, I'm Barb Kirkmeyer, and I'm running for Colorado. I'm running for governor of the state of Colorado because, quite frankly, it's time. It's time that we have a governor that knows how to govern and that really, truly believes that Colorado's best days are ahead. So I grew up on a dairy farm, poor in northern Jefferson County. When I was younger, my job was to go out and feed the calves before and after, and for that, I got paid about $2 a month. I was able to save up my money and buy a heifer calf and join 4-H when I turned 9 years of age. From there, I went to the University of Colorado. I went to the University of Colorado and I worked my way through college. When I came out of college, I was able to create 2 small businesses from running the dairy farm, owning a dairy farm, and running a small floral shop in Fort Collins with my sister. And then, about 1990 or so, I was just minding my own business, trying to raise a family. We had the dairy farm, I had the flower shop, and along comes government, and along comes, big business and waste management, and they all tried to put a bunch of landfills in my neck of the woods. Well, I called my county commissioner and I said, we need some help down here in the southwest part of the county because I live about an hour away from the county seat. And he basically, by the time we got done, told me that it didn't really matter what happened in my end of the county. Didn't matter that I was going to go out and fight for my community and stop some of these landfills. Told me that I was chasing windmills. And I told him, I said, you're going to be sorry, but you're going to be sad when I catch one of those windmills. And later I actually ran against him and I won county commissioner. So, that was my first fight that I won. And I became a county commissioner, served as Weld County Commissioner for 20 years, then went on to serve in the, in between times there, in between terms. I served in Governor Owens' administration, eventually becoming the executive director of the Department of Local Affairs. And then for the last 5 years, I have served as a state senator from District 23, which is where you live, Jimmy,
yeah.
And parts of it's mostly Weld County, but it's also some portions of Larimer County that include like Berthoud, parts of Fort Collins, and Timnath.
Yeah, you got to give the full disclosure. She is my state senator, and anytime I see Barb Kirkmeyer on a ballot, I vote for Barb. That's a rule of life in the Lakey household. Vote for Barb if she's on the ballot. So she's correct. She is my state senator. Barb, I want to. You have watched. I have watched the degradation of this state. Sometimes it's like in slow motion. Sometimes it's slapping us in the face like a water hose. Whoa, that's happening quick. We've got to make some changes in this state. And one of the things that I think is becoming exposed across America is these Democrat-led states and Democrat-led municipalities have a crime problem. We have a crime problem in Colorado. Our own Sheriff Steve Reams had to release a dangerous prisoner from his jail because of a law that was signed by Jared Polis that says that they're not competent to stand trial. I'm sorry, you have to just let them roam the streets out there. Now, Polis is, I think last night was running for cover saying, no, don't do that. But we have a crime problem. Talk about crime and how much is that on Barb Kirkmeyer's radar?
It's definitely on the radar. Public safety is going to be one of my top issues, top things that I'm going to talk about, top things that we need to fix. I mean, as you've said, we are the second most dangerous state in the nation. And if you remember, it wasn't so long ago that Governor Polis said in his State of the State address that he was going to make us in the top 10 of safest. And I think we totally went the wrong way there. But so you're exactly right. And what's happening, I mean, there's a lot to unpack there with what's going on in the situation of where people who are deemed incompetent and not getting through the judicial system in a short amount of time. There's a lot to unpack there about the constitutionality of what we're doing and what judges get to do. And I'm not going to question that, but here's the real issue that I believe is happening. And again, back to Democrats and the situation they've got us in with this budget, where we're out of control budget, and they keep spending over and over, overspending over and over every year. What has happened is we are actually being we were sued back, I think it was in like 2011. And by 2019, we were sued on this whole competency and the ability to serve those people who are deemed incompetent, being able to get them into Fort Logan, which is our institution that we have here in the state. I think we have about 850 or so beds there. And it's just not enough. We have a list. We have a list of where we need at least another 300 to 400 beds. But we actually, because of the lawsuit, we pay to stay out of compliance. And we have this consent decree, and there's a bunch that goes on. So like I said, there's a lot to unpack here, but the problem is we're not able to fund, appropriately our institution, Fort Logan, so that we could have the beds, so that people who are incompetent, people like Sheriff Steve Reams said that we need, we shouldn't be releasing, which I totally agree with. But again, we need to make sure we're for the Constitution at the same time. But at the same time, we don't have anywhere for them to go because we're underfunding things that we should be funding in this state. And, I am going to lay that at the Democrats and, one party control that's been in control for the last 8 years. And it is something that we're going to need to figure out and need to address, both as a legislature and should I become governor of the state of Colorado. You know what? I'm pulling in those sheriffs. I'm going to pull in the district attorneys, and we're going to get this figured out.
Barb Kirkmeyer's on the phone with us. She's candidate as of yesterday, declared for the candidacy of governor. Disclaimer, she's my state senator. She's a current state senator in the state of Colorado. And candidate you definitely want to look at in this primary race among Republicans. A lot of people jumping in. Barb, let's say you get the nomination, and I think you have a very good shot at doing that. Obviously, Republicans have not had a message and or a candidate that was able to get through the mindset of Colorado. We haven't fared well. What does a Republican such as yourself need to do to connect with the state of Colorado that we've kind of gone from being a purple state to more of a blue state? What's the message that people will resonate with? Is it crime? Is it roads? Is it schools? What's the message we have to get through and say, hey, we have better ideas here?
Clearly, that is an issue that we have to deal with. But as I run for governor, and I think I'll be able to speak to governor or speak to what college needs and interests are, and that's what we have to do. We have to have a message that does resonate with the people of the state of Colorado based on what their needs and interests are. I mean, clearly, we have seen from the polling in the last few months, but certainly in the last day or two, that people are fed up with both Democrats and Republicans. But right now, I'll just remind everybody, we have one party control. Our state has been controlled by Democrats who are we're in the majority in the House, they're in the Senate, and they control the governor's office. And we've had one party control for the last 7 years for certain. And it's a problem. It's an issue where, they feel like we are going in the wrong direction. We're not going the right way. So I'm going to build a campaign. And should I become governor, which I will, I'm going to build, in my governor's office we're going to talk to and speak to people's needs and their interests. We're going to talk about affordability, about lowering insurance costs, about how do we have healthcare in this state that isn't in crisis mode. Safer communities, like we talked about. We need to talk about better schools, and we need to get to the point where we understand that, parents get to parent and teachers need to teach, and then government just needs to get out of the way. We need to
Yeah.
figure out how to cut through the red tape. We just went through a special session, Jimmy, where the governor and the Democrats, again, one party control, tried to tell us that we were having a session about the budget. No, we weren't. We had a session about increasing taxes, which is, again, going the wrong way. People have been telling us for years that it's unaffordable in this state. We're unaffordable. We're unsafe. We're unraveling. And yet here, one party control Democrats are saying, gosh, we're going to raise your taxes. And that's all we could do in that special session was, that they did. The one party control, the Democrats did, is they raised taxes to the tune of $250 million because they were so upset that the feds, the Republicans at the federal level, gave us tax relief. God forbid we should get additional tax relief at the state, according to them. So, I think people are done. They're done with this. We went through the No on HH campaign. Over 60% of the people said they love Tabor. They don't want us to get rid of Tabor. They want our property taxes lower. And then what do they do? They go through a special session and increase taxes. It's crazy. It made our budget situation worse.
You have Barb Kirkmeyer, by the way, if you're listening on the audio portion only throughout the day. Barb Kirkmeyer, candidate now for Colorado governor. We'll give her website out in just a moment. Definitely a candidate that you should be looking into as we head towards that election season for next year. But there's a lot of big primary to go through. 15, I think, declared candidates out there. Barb Kirkmeyer, definitely one I want you to pay attention to. Barb, you've been able to balance something, I think, so well in your career that I've watched. You've been a principled conservative, but you've also somehow been able to go to the state legislature, maintain your conservative principles, but manage to work somehow across the aisle. Sometimes we hear Republicans that, quote, work across the aisle, and that is basically, that just means they wave the white flag of surrender and say, okay, yeah, we'll go along with you. You've not been that way. You've worked across the aisle, and yet you haven't surrendered. I think that's a balancing act that very few people have made and can do. Talk about your ability to work across the aisle, because as we know, this is a purple state, and there are going to be some Democrats that you would have to work with in this state.
Sure, and I appreciate that, Jimmy. Thank you so much. It's true, and I just want people to understand, and this is how I approach it. I'm not running to be the governor of a party. I'm running to be the governor of Colorado, and I have to look out for the best interests of all the people in Colorado. It will be my job as governor to represent the state's interests in dealing with the federal government, with other states. But, and I believe voters, and I've always believed this, whether I was a county commissioner or a state senator, that they expect me to act with integrity and a strong sense of public obligation. And that's what I'm going to do as governor, and that's what I've been doing as a state senator. You're correct. I don't surrender. I don't compromise on my values and my principles and what I said when I was running to get elected. That's who I am, and I stick with that. But I also have this kind of other general feeling that, and maybe it's because of my local government roots, being a county commissioner and coming up through the ranks as a county commissioner. But, you have to work, you have to pull people together, build coalitions, and build consensus. And I just truly believe that regardless if people are a Democrat or Republican, there's usually about 80% of the stuff that we can agree on, 80% of the issues that we can agree on. So I focus on those. And, I have been fortunate to find people who I do consider friends who are on the other side of the aisle. I mean, again, we don't agree on everything, but we can agree on lowering property taxes. And I carried two bills that one at the end of the session and one during the special session in 24 to have the largest property tax cut in the state's history. And that's pretty amazing when you're thinking, I'm in a majority. There are 35 state senators, only 12 of us are Republicans. But I was able to get that through from working with people and telling them this is what's in the best interest of the people of Colorado and convincing them we needed to work together on it. And then just recently, worked in a couple of other areas in healthcare, which is, become a passion of mine. I mean, for the last 30 years, I've been the one who's been caring about these kids that are in, at no fault of their own in horrible situations. But recently, healthcare, we're in a crisis mode in this state, and was able to, again, work across the aisle, find solutions, talking to everybody. Man, you've got to pull everybody to the table and have these conversations, but talking to folks and passing a bill to stabilize our healthcare safety net. Unfortunately, what the governor did 2 days after the special session pretty much unwind that. But and I can talk about that later. But the other area that I have been really strong on at the state capitol is education, and making sure that we have funding for education and that kids matter. We should never be balancing the budget on the backs of students. And that's what we did for about 12 to 15 years or so. Well, maybe not that long, but at least 12 years or so, balancing the budget on the backs of students. I was the one that was able to push through the budget stabilization factor eliminated, but at the same time, just in this last year, realizing that those folks across the aisle from me that don't know how to manage a budget keep coming in and saying, well, we're going to have to cut education. So I was able to amendment on the School Finance Act that says, nope, you don't get to cut education unless you come back in front of all of us and pass a different law, because I was able to get an amendment on the law that says we will fund education, and we will take that out of our general fund, and we get it done. And it's called the Kids Matter Fund. So those are things that I've been able to work on and been able to work with people. But, as a governor, you got to be a governor for everybody, man. And that's what I'm going to work on.
Yeah. Education is one that touches everybody, and we want
Mhm.
teachers to teach, parents to be able to be parents, and we can improve there. Looking at test scores, not just in Colorado, but nationally, we're headed the wrong direction. That would be something. There's another area that I think affects everybody, and we don't talk about it much in Colorado. I think we've kind of accepted it as just the way it is. But we have Governor Pothole Polis. I mean, we've got potholes. It's a mess in this state. You grew up here. I've been here over 20 years, and we have grown and grown and grown, and our infrastructure, the main highways, the side highways, haven't kept up, not just with growth and expansion. We haven't even kept up on maintenance of these roads. We can't even figure out how to stripe half the roads to where you can see them when the rain hits it, because of the reflective properties. We have a real problem with Pothole Polis. Are the roads something that catches Barbara Kirkmeyer's mind, so that maybe people relate? They drive on the roads every day.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. So, again, you know what? I know how to build a road, quite frankly, just from my days of being a county commissioner. And we built the only county highway in the state of Colorado. And if you haven't been, it's called the 49 Parkway, and it's over there it goes from I-76 all the way up to State Highway 392. It's a great roadway. You should all go enjoy it. There aren't any potholes on it, but you're exactly right. I mean, I've spent a career working in transportation on the State Transportation Advisory Committee, which I chaired. I started the I-25 North Coalition, which is why we have that project going in northern Colorado on North I-25 pretty much through my district right now. But it goes, we all know I-25 is Colorado's main street, but that project and making sure we get it built. But here's what has happened, and everybody's exactly right. We need to fix our darn roads. We need to maintain them, get them back into shape, and stop this where we centralize everything down in the Denver metro area, and all we care about is transit. I mean, transit is fine. I know it's part of the 10-year development plan. I served as the chair of the Upper Front Range Transportation Plan for 20 years, served as the chair of the State Transportation Advisory Committee, but we have to get our infrastructure in good shape.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you're putting the money into buses, if those buses don't have a road to drive on that works, that isn't full of potholes and isn't causing damage to our vehicles or your vehicle, that type of thing. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely, fixing our darn roads is definitely on my agenda. I've been involved in transportation for the last 30 years, but it's bad because for the last 8 years, we have really, or last 7 years, certainly, we have really concentrated on just funding projects more in the more populated areas of the state. This is why rural Colorado gets so ticked off at the Democrats and the folks who are in Denver. Is that it's like the roads in rural Colorado are a mess. I mean, I just drove back from Grand Junction, and I'm like, when are they ever going to get Floyd Hill fixed?
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
It's a
when is that?
mess.
I mean, I know it's been in the 10-year plan because I saw it in there and I for it kind of thing to put it into the 10-year plan. So when are they going to get that fixed? It's things of that nature. So yes, absolutely. I will tell you this. When I'm governor of the state of Colorado, we will fix these darn roads and we
Yeah.
will put a priority on it.
Yeah,
It's about safety, quite frankly. It's about safety as well.
Some things have been in the 10-year plan for 20 years and we're still not there. And
Exactly.
I mean, we paid for funding, supposed to be a bus or a train that goes from Denver to Boulder and Longmont, and that's 20 years down the road, and that never happened. So we're going to get to it. That was in the 10-year plan. So there's been a lot of things. Barbara, you've got to run here in just a second, I know, but you are in a crowded field, and I think you stand a very good chance. I've already had people popping messages up in our chat room saying, Jeff says, I vote Barb all the way. Linda just said Barb has my vote. So there's a lot of folks that immediately say, oh yeah, Kirkmeyer's in, I'll follow Barb. And I think that's not a bad decision for anybody to make. But you got a crowded field and you're going to have to get your message out to a lot of Republican primary voters. What separates you? Why in a crowded field of 15 should Republicans pay special attention to Barb Kirkmeyer?
Sure. And thank you for the question. And thank you for all the comments for the folks who are sending those in. I greatly appreciate it. Here's the thing. My experience and determination to work every day, my work ethic puts me above and beyond other folks that are in this field. And I'm not saying anything about those folks. They're all good folks, and they can run for governor if they so choose. That's up to them. I'm not trying to say anything with regard to being negative towards them, but my experience is I'm a lifelong Coloradoan, a fourth generation by the fact. I'm a mom, I'm a grandmother. I've owned a dairy farm, so I've got that agricultural background. I grew up on a dairy farm. I grew up in poverty and being poor. I know what it's like to have to go work hard for every dollar that you earn. And believe me, I keep that in the back of my mind every day. I've been a small businesswoman, successfully running a floral shop with my sister, and I am a proven conservative leader. I led my county to zero debt. I've done things with regard to reducing property taxes as a state senator, ensuring that we have historic amounts of funding for education. Next up on my list will be accountability as we move through there, so everybody understands. But, everything that I've done, the accomplishments, my experiences that I've had lead me to being the governor that this state needs. I will be responsible leadership that delivers real results, and I'll be able to start doing that. Certainly, I will start on day one and work my way through it. I'm a fighter. I'm a hard worker. I've learned that growing up again on a dairy farm, being poor, raising calves, and fighting working my way through college, that type of thing. So I have experiences and accomplishments that I don't believe anybody in this race, whether it's on the Republican or Democrat side, that they have. Not to say that they're bad people. I think they're all great individuals, great guys, but I just have the experience, have the accomplishments, and have the fighting spirit to get it done, and a vision that will deliver real results for Colorado.
Barb Kirkmeyer. Barb, you announced yesterday, just down the road from me at the fort in Fort Lupton. I forgot.
Yeah.
Where's that? And now you're official. You have a website up. I know your social media changed its name as well. If folks want to learn more about your campaign, why don't you give that a plug right now?
Yes, if you'd like to learn more about my campaign, please go to kirkmeyerforcolorado.com. That's kirkmeyerforcolorado.com. And come join the team. There's an opportunity for you to volunteer and join the team, and we would love to have you.
I know you got to get here, but somebody just popped a question in. What are your plans, your thoughts on homelessness in this state? That's become a real problem. Any thoughts on that yet, Barb Kirkmeyer?
It is a problem, but I will tell you, it's a problem that happens within the local governments, and I'm not going to be a governor who's going to try and preempt local governments. I've been known, even as a county commissioner, but certainly as working at the Department of Local Affairs, as I have, to work to partner with local governments to solve those issues. So, you know what? I'll be willing and able to come partner with any local government or all local governments who want to work together to work to solve that issue in their community and figure out what resources from the state that we can bring to assist.
Kirk Meyer for Colorado's the website. Barbara, you're welcome. We'll have you back on as often as you will come, and want people to look into your candidacy and figure out why it is that they maybe should be supporting you. Kirk Meyer for Colorado. Barb Kirkmeyer, congratulations. We'll be in touch, and you be in touch with me.
Thank you, Jimmy, and appreciate everything you're doing for the state of Colorado as well. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Barb Kirkmeyer, Kirkmeyer for Colorado, KirkmeyerForColorado.com. And we always love having the candidates on, but that is definitely, I mean, what I said about Barb Kirkmeyer. Somehow she just gets stuff done. She is a doer for sure. And there's a lot of candidates in there, and you're going to want to do your due diligence. I understand that. I've made it a policy, even though I will vote in a primary and I will vote and do all that stuff, and I'll make my choice. I don't usually endorse in primaries because I want you to do your own thing, but I will tell you, Barb Kirkmeyer is a candidate that you need to look at. Her ability to get things done, her track record, her knowledge of issues. I remember even oil and gas fights. I could always have her on the radio show, and she could speak to some pretty cool. She's just very knowledgeable, very smart lady, and I would hope that you would look into her website and contemplate and consider. We're still early in the race, but KirkmeyerForColorado.com. Definitely, again, I'm not one to publicly endorse during primary season. Got a lot of friends in the race, but I'm telling you, Barb Kirkmeyer is a legitimate candidate, and I think has a dang good chance of not just getting the nomination, but making a clear message to the state. She's a great communicator. So please, if you do yourself a favor, KirkmeyerForColorado.com, KirkmeyerForColorado.com. We'll get her back on the program and dive deeper into some of these topics, but I think we covered a lot of them. And by the way, somebody sent me a text message and said, Pothole Polis. I like that. Well, you can use it. It's a good nickname for him, Pothole Polis. All right, glad to have you here on the program. Again, her website, Kirkmeyer for Colorado. I'd love to have you go check it out, and we'll get her back on. She just announced yesterday. I'm glad she popped on today. And as the campaigns develop, we got time. We'll have Barbara back on. She is my state senator, and she goes down there and fights like hell, and yet somehow she is very nice. She has friends that on the other side of the aisle, and sometimes I think they're unreasonable, and somehow she brings reason to them. I don't know how she does it. She's like she's like the horse whisperer. She's a dare. Anyway, she gets it. I don't understand. I don't understand the ability she has to do that. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you know what time it is? It's time for us to steal memes, because producer Chad and I are lazy enough that we don't make our own memes. We steal them from around the internet. It's called the stolen memes section of the show, and I bring up my cheap prop because we're a cheap show. And ladies and gentlemen, here we go. We're gonna go steal the memes from around the intergoogles, and here we go. Ray just said, too bad Barb's not running in Oregon. Should have my vote. She's fantastic. When I heard she was jumping in, again, I'm not want to be gentle because I've never publicly endorsed a Republican candidate in a primary season, partially because I've got so many friends in so many different races that are legitimate friends. But I'm telling you, Barb Kirkmeyer is somebody you should look at as a fantastic candidate for the Republican Party. I'm just telling you that. That's my advice to you. All right, we're going to do the meme roulette, but I also teased a story. I don't want to forsake you. Survey of more than 3,000 football fans about the drinking habits, and what they found out. The NFL season has begun, and football fans maybe watch their teams with a few beers. Some have too many beers, and some teams have too many beers than others. The fan base with the heaviest drinkers, according to the survey, is... No, it's not Cleveland. And of course, as Dallas fans feel like we ought to drink because Jerry Jones, but it's the Arizona Cardinals. Nearly 19% of Cardinals fans admit to downing 5 or more drinks on game day. Producer Chad and I call that Tuesday. But on game day, these Arizona Cardinals fans, they drink 5 or more drinks on game day, really pushing the limit of that drinking responsibility. Game day's all day, though. If you're just doing 5 drinks all day, I think you're okay. The Buffalo Bills are second in line of the drunkest fans, followed by the Houston Texans, the Carolina Panthers, the Tennessee Titans, then the Washington Commanders, I call them the Redskins, the Chargers of L.A., New York Giants, the New Orleans Saints, and the Jacksonville Jaguars. Just so you know, the fan base that binges the least on game day, the Green Bay Packers. Only 3% of Packers fans have more than 5 or more drinks. Only 3% admit to it. I think the Green Bay fans are liars. If you lived in Green Bay, you'd be drinking. It's cold up there. You got to keep warm. Seattle Seahawks drink the second least, followed by the Steelers, the Dolphins. Although the way the Dolphins played last week, they're going to start drinking heavily. The Patriots, the Chiefs, etc. If you're curious, the Cleveland Browns fans are the 20th of the heaviest drinkers on the 32 teams. So maybe you thought it was the Browns because they've had many years of bad luck. The forget the Browns. What about the Cowboys? We have reason to drink, and we're kind of mediocre when it comes to drinking. I think because we're so used to it that we just don't even count it drinking anymore. It's called, again, Tuesday. All right, glad to have you here. It's time for the stolen meme section of the show. We go around the inter-Googles and we steal memes from everywhere. And here we go. Let's do it. Round and round the globe we go, where we steal the memes from no one knows. There's a Donald Trump meme dressed up in his Western attire. He says, sorry, my screen is acting up and I can't see the whole thing. You tell them I'm coming and the American people are coming with me. Yeah, there's Donald Trump, our superhero. Although, shouldn't Donald Trump have a white hat on? I think he should have the white hat. Although he does look pretty good in the black hat as well. Here we go. Round and round the globe we go, where we steal the memes from no one knows. It's all text on this one, so I can explain it to you listeners out there. I just found out my uncle, a lifelong Republican, is voting Democrat this fall. This would never happen if he were still alive. Yep, that's probably true. Probably true. Here we go. Round and round the globe we go, where we steal the memes from no one knows. Dad, I think I'm a boy. And Dad says, well, you're not. Period. The end. You ain't a boy. Get over it. Let's go to therapy. It's good parenting. Round and round the globe we go, where we steal the memes from no one knows. Student raising their hand in classroom. I would like to learn a trade and how to do taxes. The public school looks at him with a rainbow flag, says America's evil and some men have periods. Yep, public schools have failed our kids in a lot of instances. Some great teachers out there, but there's a lot of bad systems out there that our kids get sucked up in, and that is a case in point and yet funny example of it. Round and round the globe we go, where we steal the memes from no one knows. Colin Kaepernick attempting a 6 year of returning to the NFL. He's so desperate. This time he got on 2 knees. You take that so many different ways. And I think I know how producer Chad took that. Round and round the globe we go, where we steal the memes. It's a Pringles moment for him. Jeff gets that joke. I think we milked the meme machine dry. By the way, speaking of votes, they talked about the meme that talked about the election and stuff. Did you hear that this judge has thrown out a case, the Biden Justice Department, and they were prosecuting electors in, it was Michigan or Illinois, that had said don't certify the election back in 2016, and it was an Obama-appointed judge said there's no case against these people. These people legitimately thought that votes had been stolen, and they wanted to certify a different slate of electors. And an Obama-appointed judge said they had every right to do that and kick the case out. And so all the prosecution against those people in the 2020 election, I should say, a lot of those cases where they tried to that stood up for election fraud and stood up against it, a lot of those cases have now been thrown out or are in jeopardy. And this was thrown out yesterday by an Obama judge. So the truth one day will make us free as to what really happened in the 2020 election. Ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't donated to our charity this week, we're wrapping up coming up really I said 1 week before and 1 week after. It's our biggest fundraising time of the year surrounding our golf event. And I would really welcome you to donate to Rivers Promise, whatever you can do. $10 buys a uniform for kids. We still got to buy some more uniforms here. $30 feeds a kid 2 meals a day for 1 month, and $65 does all of that, and it also sends them to school. There's entry levels. Last week I mentioned, and I got to go, we're way over time. Last week I mentioned Gotcha Day when I left the Rwandan orphanage with my son. Today is Gotcha Day number 2. This is a day in history that in 2008, I landed in America with my son, and this is the day we got him home. This is Gotcha Day number 2. The day I left Rwanda, the day we landed in the United States, which immediately upon landing, the way the laws are written, he became an American citizen on this day. So September the 10th is a Gotcha Day number 2. We flew from Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, had a little change and refuel in Italy. I believe we landed in Rome, didn't get off the plane, rode from Rome to Washington Dulles Airport, went through immigration, handed in some paperwork, and from Washington Dulles, I lived in the Bay Area at that time, and my son and I flew to the Bay Area, landed at SFO, and went home from there. And it was a long journey, but today is Gotcha Day number 2, a great day. This is why we have the golf tournament around this time, because it celebrates the arrival of my son and the birth of Rivers Promise. So September the 10th is the date, 2008. That's the magical date, 17 years ago. Gotcha Day number 2 happens today. If you'd like to give an honor of that, feel free. $17. Why don't you do that? Riverspromise.org, riverspromise.org. Ladies and gentlemen, we have gone way over time. I knew we'd go late today because of the great interview with Barb Kirkmeyer. Go check out our website, would you? Kirkmeyer for Colorado, KirkmeyerforColorado.com. Don't forget to go to all the podcast platforms, Spotify, iHeart, Podbean, Apple Podcasts. This show will be live on the podcast platforms in just a matter of moments. Like us, subscribe to it, share it out to your friend. Good Lord, women, the creeks don't rise. I'll be back here tomorrow morning. Until we meet again, sorry for keeping you late, but I hope you enjoyed it. God bless you. God bless America. I am Jimmy Lakey. Peace. I'm out of here.